First question's from Alana Rizzo. Go ahead, Alana.
Dave, Trinan, Santana, Kolaric, and Floro expected to throw today in your inter-squad game. How long do you anticipate those guys going, and is there anything in particular that you're looking for from those arms?
I think each of those guys is going to go one. There might be one of those guys is going to go two, but I know it's not Dennis, it's not Trinan. Might be Fergie. Lowe's going to go one. So I think with all those guys, just to go up there, be on the attack, execute pitches. And with this situation, you're not going to have a bunch of outings. So, the handful of outings that these guys get, they've got to approach it, with intensity and urgency, which I know they will.
You had mentioned with this situation, guys aren't going to go as long and get as many outings and appearances as they normally would in spring. When the regular season starts, is it realistic your starter goes, 3 innings, 2 innings? What are you expecting from your starters?
I think each one is a little bit different. But I think if you look at right now, some of the guys off the top of my head, Clayton, Strip, Woody, I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be built up to 7 innings, to be quite honest. So they should be at that 100 pitch threshold by the time we break camp. We'll see where Walker's at, Julio's at, but I still certainly think all those guys will be north of 3 innings for sure.
Daily roll call, Dave, of your players that haven't reported yet. Has there been anybody that has reported out of those guys that you had mentioned previously?
Not as of now, no. I haven't seen anyone that that hasn't been here. I do know that the rumor I just got wind of is that Kenley's not here because he was opting out. So I don't think there's an issue for that.
He's opting out?
No, the rumor. I don't think
it's a rumor. How would that impact you if that were to be true?
Well, Lana, thank goodness it's not.
Last question for you. We talk about player opt-outs. Did you as a manager ever consider not playing? Or not managing? It's, we think about the player perspective, but, the coaches and managers and stuff have families and perhaps different opinions as well.
I thought about, what's at stake and I've given my health history, talked to my wife and family and just wanted to make sure that, I have to make sure that I'm responsible. But I never really considered really opting out or choosing not to manage.
Sorry about the Kenley question. It's hard to hear you with the Zoom. At first, I thought you said that was happening. I almost had a heart attack. All right, carry on.
Next question is from Dave Vassay. Go ahead, Dave.
Dave, just in the first few inter-squad games, can you tell who's ahead? Is it the pitchers that are ahead or is it the hitters?
That's a good question. I think that, I thought that the pitchers might be a tick ahead. And, but I think the hitters are really holding their own, taking some good at-bats. But I think, if I had to pick one right now, I would say the pitchers are a tick ahead. But I expect that to even out pretty soon, especially with our guys.
Is it the same as it would be during the beginning of spring training? And do you feel like by the time opening day is here, it'll be pretty much even?
I think it'll be certainly even by the time we break, but it's not as drastic as it typically is when we begin camp in the middle of February. I think right now, because these guys have been taking live at bats, over the last couple of weeks, has prepared them certainly more than they had in a normal situation.
Thank you.
Next question is from Eric Steven. Go ahead, Eric.
Dave, in a normal year, you get minor league reports on minor leaguers every day, but you're mostly dealing with the people who are in the majors. Now you have a 60-player pool. Like, how has your day-to-day job been affected so far in the early part of camp?
I get reports on everybody that's, whether it's at the satellite or obviously the guys here that I see. We're expecting to add to the satellite group. It's different because we're not at the same facility, so I don't get to kind of run over there or go on the field 3 or 4 and watch him. But the confidence that I have in the coaches that are over there, looking over those guys is obviously very high. Again, it's just different, but I do think, Eric, that the work that we're getting, because the number is much lower, the work that each individual is getting, I think is considerably higher than normal.
On the minor league side with Edwin Uceta, Cody Thomas, and Zach Rex, they were placed on the injured list. Did they have injuries that you can disclose?
I don't, Eric. I haven't seen those guys, and I know they're on the injured list, but I can't disclose it.
Thank you.
Next question from Beth Harris. Go ahead, Beth.
Hey, Dave, just wanted to check and see if there's any additions to that list of 7 guys who have not reported.
I don't know if we're going to add to them. I know we're going to add, Beth, but right now I don't know the number or the particular names. I know we can get that to you, though, once it happens.
Thank you.
Next question's from Jorge Castillo. Go ahead, Jorge.
Hey, Dave. Max earlier told us that he basically could not pick up the pitch that hit him on Sunday. And, he kind of referenced the fact that the batter's eye could be a problem. Have you heard feedback from other players about that?
Yeah, I have. I think that the position players, certainly it's different. And, you put it in place and, it's a process to kind of see what works for the hitters. The pitchers, I think that would probably take the other side as far as the visual for the hitter being difficult, which is okay for them. But you want fair play. So I think that this is something that our guys are really open to as far as adhering or listening to the players and trying to figure out what gives them the best chance to see the baseball. Because what you don't want is a player not to be able to see, to now put him in harm's way. So, the time of day I think mattered, but for Max to say he couldn't see the ball because of the background, that's a little unsettling.
Do you anticipate, if there's enough feedback that you guys can make some adjustments with the especially without fans?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the organization is certainly open to making it the best, safest, backdrop hitter's eye for our guys.
Thanks.
Next question's from JP. Go ahead, JP. Next question's from KABC. Go ahead, KABC.
Hey, Dave, Kurt Sandoval from KABC. Can you, on the 7 player, kind of a 2-part question, on the 7 players, can you speak to, from a managerial concern, how big that is? I know we're still a couple weeks out, but that seems like a big number. And the second part of that is it accurate to say that relief pitching will play a heavier role this year because of the 60 games?
I think that first off, the pitcher, position player, being late to summer camp certainly puts them behind the 8 ball because of the repetitions, getting your legs under you, getting the at-bats, the innings, building up. So all that stuff certainly it makes it a little bit more difficult. On the pitcher, starting pitcher versus relief pitcher, because of the 60 games, I think that it's still starting pitching, Kurt. The better your starters pitch, the more opportunity you have to use your relievers, not overwork them, put them in the right spots. So I think that they both kind of work hand in hand. But there's an expanded, group of pitchers that certainly can kind of help matching up. But now you've got the 3-batter minimum that plays an impact in the strategy part of it. But it's hard to still argue that starting pitching isn't going to be the key.
Thanks, Dave.
Next question is from Michael Duarte. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, Doc.
Hey, Michael.
I was reminded the other day that you guys have the largest COVID testing center in the country right there in your backyard at Dodger Stadium. I've seen the lines myself driving in that area. Is that something you see when you enter the ballpark? And with your team practicing and playing baseball again, can that be like a constant reminder to you and your players of the surging cases in the county in LA and just what's at stake?
Yeah, it's actually got me twice with the line. I've had to make a U-turn to come back up Sunset. So it's certainly front of mind and should be. And it's great to see, the Angelinos, trying to go out there and getting the testing consistently. And I'm just happy we have the supply to support that demand. So I think for our players, we're getting tested essentially daily ourselves. So, when you see coaches and players with masks around, so it's certainly a high priority for all of us.
Thanks, Dave.
Try this again with JP. Go ahead, JP.
Hey, Dave.
Hi, JP.
I wanted to get some clarification on something you mentioned earlier with respect to adding to the player pool. Are you thinking specifically that there are players currently outside the organization who you expect to be joining at some point, or are you thinking specifically about players already in the organization who, for whatever reason, just haven't been able to report?
That could change, but I was referring to players that are already in our organization.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Question from Jim Alexander. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, Dave. Given the unusual nature of all of this, are there things that you're dealing with or things that you're doing as a manager that you never thought would ever be in the job description?
You're always trying to make sure the players are physically, mentally, and emotionally prepared. And things are always kind of unknown and unpredictable. But I obviously, like everyone else, this kind of layer with the global pandemic, I never really thought I would have to really try to educate myself so I could kind of help the players along and really keep their psyche positive and focus on baseball. So I guess it's like for everyone is in that same bucket, I guess. Just continue to try to educate, and things change a lot, but there's a lot of logistic things that are going to still kind of come in towards us as we get closer to the season. So I'm just trying to be open-minded, nimble, and hopefully our players, will follow suit.
And your players have been pretty flexible anyway, just given the nature of the roster and the way you guys do things. Is that something that's come into play here and maybe been an advantage that they're that they're able to handle all the stuff that's being thrown at them?
I think it more lends itself to the intelligence of the players. I think collectively it's a very smart group, and that kind of awareness, I think, allows them to ask the right questions and not complain about things that they can't control. So that's something I'm really proud of.
A question from Doug Padilla. Go ahead, Doug. Go ahead, Doug. Another question from Jorge. Go ahead, Jorge.
Dave, I just want to confirm, did AJ Ramos join the team today?
AJ was here yesterday.
Okay.
And I saw AJ, he threw a light pen, and I say light is probably 30 pitches, and in front of the pitching guys, and so came out of it good. So I would assume that he'll take a couple, 2-3 days and get back in there and do another pen to then face some hitters.
Obviously, he has a history. He was an all-star. But was there some motivation to signing him just as insurance with, Pedro and Kenley not being around?
I don't think that was the kind of the impetus. I think that it was more of just seeing an arm, and one of our scouts, Vance Lovelace, saw him and kind of reached out to baseball ops and spoke, highly of the pens and the arm. He's got 2 breaking balls. The ball is coming out. He's got a plus changeup. So that was more of just continuing to add pitching depth.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Juan.